Historically, Canada's enormous resource wealth has not been shared with Aboriginal communities. This is an interview series on economic reconciliation between Indigenous people and the rest of Canada.
Economic reconciliation means bringing hope and opportunity to Indigenous people in Canada.
Bringing the wealth back to the community. And our communities are no longer managing poverty, but are managing wealth.
Reconciliation is assuming that you and I had a previous relationship. And a lot of people have never had a relationship with First Nations people.
We are here to explore the progress that is being made today. We talk to thinkers, to business and community leaders, and we share their insights with you.
It's an incredibly profound question.
I think, to be perfectly frank, and this is always dangerous.
We're going to have to cut for half a second. These are huge, loaded questions.
Welcome to Raw Talks, the new debate on resources and wealth. We look at the history.
Prior to contact, Indigenous people were very wealthy. We had access to our resources, we had access to our lands. We're essentially put into reservations and forgotten about. When the newcomers came and landed, we had a global trading hub, being Canada in the fur trade, and it powered a global economy. So we're natural entrepreneurs.
First of all, we have to understand that Canada is a colonial country with colonial laws. We come from a stolen history, stolen land, stolen identity.
We ask, how is that affecting the situation in the Indigenous communities today?
Systemic racism that still exists in Canada. The perceptions about who we are as people, that we don't know business or that we're relegated to these small reserves and that's all we're going to grow.
75% of all our communities are north of the 50th parallel.
The North is very challenged. I think there are some basic amenities that we have in Southern Canada that we take for granted. Anywhere from affordable food.
$7 for a can of soup and $7 for a can of tomato. Like, it would be nothing to pay $80 for a turkey.
We contributed from our businesses about $12 billion to Canada's economy. Overall, when you combine our households and our Indigenous governments, about $30+ billion. That only represents about 1.5% of the total contribution to Canada's GDP, when we represent 4.5% to 5% of the population. So there is a gap there.
We find hope in their stories.
First of all, you have to come to the realization that you can't go back in time and live off the land.
For-profit organizations build bridges with Indigenous communities, and that work needs to continue.
Procurement opportunities drive jobs, drive creation, and support self-determination of the community.
We're developing relationships internationally. Indigenous people around the world are starting to connect.
I think the Crown relationship with Indigenous people in Canada, not perfect, is still years ahead of the relationship in Australia.
We ask, what are the opportunities in the resource sector?
We're going to be the new Saudi Arabians of the 21st century.
You know, we're here, we are stewards of our land, you're sharing our land and our resources with us. The community really decided we're going to be a part of this development and began sending members up to the mine sites with shovels and hammers and said, you know, we're here and we're ready to work.
If it wasn't for the mining companies in Canada, I really don't know where Indigenous business would be today. They are the ones championing all the progressive actions.
I think with the resource industry, you know, we always talk about partnerships, and I think there's got to be more of an equity stake.
The mining extractive industry came to realise that if we were going to be successful in working on land and accessing resources here in Canada now and into the future, we had to do this differently. For a long period of time, from an Indigenous perspective, there has been a strong sense that their opportunities were not being considered, that their rights and entitlements were not being considered.
Welcome to the new debate.